So this is a comment from a video I made about free will and about whether or not free will actually exists, particularly in the context of a universe that was created by a God who says that nothing in that universe can happen unless he wants it to. And a very common theistic answer to that question that cropped up a lot in the comments of that video is, well, it is his will for you to have the ability to choose things that he does not want you to choose. He wants you to be able to make choices that he does not want you to make. Therefore, it is his will for you to be able to do that. And this is great. This is great because it means that we can go deeper down the philosophical rabbit hole of what choice is. What are the properties of choice and free will, and how does it actually function? Like, for instance, is it possible for me to freely make choices without first being adequately informed about all of the consequences of those choices? Another interesting question is, can you make choices freely if you are being coerced? There's a blue button and a red button, and someone's holding a gun to your head and saying, push the blue button or I'll shoot you. You push the blue button because you don't want to die, but the question is, did you actually freely make that choice, or did you just make that choice under duress or because you were being threatened with a very severe punishment? You could say you have informed consent in that situation. You are informed about what the consequences of your decision will be, but the consequences are coming in the form of a threat from an outside entity who is using that threat to manipulate your decision. Another interesting territory to explore is the idea of like totality of choice, or how many choices am I able to make? Thought experiment. You find yourself in a room with no doors, and there's a TV and a video game console that has a note on it that says, play me. You start playing the video game, and there's a character that tells you, hey, it's really, really simple. All you got to do is make it to the end of the game and do everything correct, and you'll get this amazing reward. You get to actually live for eternity with the creator of this video game, and it's really, really cool where he lives. Downside is, if you don't properly complete this game to the creator's satisfaction, a trap door opens in this room, and you go to an eternal torture realm. So the gameplay for this game is loaded with decision making. I'm walking up to things and I get to choose whether I pick them up or not, whether I put them in my bag or not. I'm walking up and I'm interacting with different characters, and I get to choose how I respond to the different prompts that they give me. There's little side quests and puzzles and stuff, and I get to choose whether or not I want to do those side quests or solve those puzzles. I seem to have a fair amount of agency in this game. The philosophical quandary when it comes to whether or not I have a totality of choice is, can I make the choice to not play the game? Can I make the choice to exit the room I'm in? Did I choose to be in the room in the first place, or was I just placed there? If you say that it is God's will for me to have free will, then that means that it was someone else's decision for me to have the ability to make decisions. Did I get a say in that process? Did I get to weigh in on whether or not I wanted to participate in this scenario? It's very much the same way in real life. I wake up and I choose what clothes I'm gonna wear. I choose what I'm gonna eat that day. I choose what I'm gonna do with my day. But I can't make the decision to just start flying. I can't make the decision to turn invisible. I can't make the decision to have super strength. I can't make the decision to teleport my body to Mars or the moon. I am constrained by the physical laws of the universe that I find myself in. The game I find myself playing was specifically designed with certain limitations on how many decisions I am able to make. And I did not design it that way. Somebody else designed it that way for me. So the question then becomes, do I actually have the ability to freely make whatever choices I want, or do I just have the carefully crafted illusion of choice? Let's say I beat the game and I get the reward of getting to live at the creator's house. Can I opt out of that, or do I just have the two options? It's just like, go live at the creator's house or go to the torture realm. It feels like a trap from a Saw movie where Jigsaw's like, if you fail, it's gonna be really, really bad for you. But if you get it right, you can come live at my house with me. And it's like, oh, I don't want to fail because that sounds really painful. But also, if it's okay, Jigsaw, I don't really want to live at your house either. One more thing about informed consent, consequences, coercion, all that stuff. Let's say I decide I want to take a trip. I'm going to fly to New York City and I'm going to watch a Broadway show. I'm about to book my plane ticket when I realize it's my best friend's birthday that same weekend that I want to go. And now I have a decision to make of whether or not I want to fly to New York or whether I want to stay in town and celebrate my best friend's birthday. I decide I'm going to be a good friend and stay in town and rage for my best friend's birthday. As a consequence of my choice, somebody else buys the plane ticket that I was going to buy. And that plane winds up falling apart in midair because it was built by Boeing and everyone aboard dies. Is it reasonable or particularly moral to believe that I should be held accountable for that person's death? They are dead as a direct consequence of a decision that I made. Now you could say, no, you should not be held accountable for that because you did not know that that was going to be a consequence of the choice you were making. Now you're talking about informed consent and saying that it is not moral or reasonable to hold someone accountable for the consequences of a choice that they did not really fully understand or have all of the necessary information about. But let's say that I did actually have the necessary information. Let's say that right as I was about to buy my plane ticket, a magical wizard showed up and said, don't buy that plane ticket. That plane is going to fall apart in the sky. So in the interest of self-preservation, I don't buy the ticket. Should I be held accountable for what happens next in that scenario? Am I morally on the hook for the consequences of that decision? We can really keep going down this rabbit hole ad infinitum. And this is usually the point where theists will just say, look, if God is all-knowing, can't you just accept that it's possible that God knows more about this stuff than you do? And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the whole point, right? The creator of the universe or the creator of the video game I'm playing has more information than I do. And they seem to be intentionally withholding a good deal of pretty crucial information from me. Like, either I know as much as God does, and if I do, that's really scary because I don't know anything, or God just has so much more information than I have. And he's threatening me with eternal torture if I make the wrong decisions while simultaneously withholding information that could be instrumental in helping me make better decisions. So, pretty fun stuff.
So Zack Snyder was recently saying that he thinks more people saw Rebel Moon than saw Barbie because Rebel Moon was streamed by 1.7 million households in its first week on Netflix. Now, his math is really bad there because Barbie made over $1 billion at the box office and was streamed by 1.2 million households in its first week on Max. So he's just wrong, but that doesn't really matter. The point is, Rebel Moon cost $166 million to make. We're talking a crew of just hundreds of people spending months and months of their lives working tirelessly to make this movie so that it could be ultimately viewed by 6, maybe 7 million people. That video I just stitched cost $0 to make and had a crew of 1 person and 2 cats, and it has over 140 million views.
Hello. I want to talk about this video.
Since there are so many lovely people in the world who love to tell me that I will never actually be a woman, I thought I would indulge them today by styling my boyfriend's clothes. I put on these pants from Engineered Garments, but they're a little big. This shirt is also Engineered Garments, which I'm going to use as a layering piece, and that's the final outfit.
So really quick, before I talk about what I think is interesting about this video, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of passing. Passing is sort of a term or a concept that refers to when a gender diverse person is societally recognized and interpreted as the gender that they identify as. So it's sort of when a gender diverse person is not regularly clocked as or easily identifiable as the gender they were assigned at birth. And I just want to say at the front of this video that a trans person or a non-binary person or a gender diverse person does not need to pass in order to earn your respect. And they definitely do not need to pass in order for you to recognize the validity of their identity and their lived human experience. That being said, I bring up the concept of passing because the woman in this video that we're looking at here, Lauren Sundstrom, does, in my opinion, pretty indisputably pass. And that's sort of the thing that sparked this line of thinking that made me want to make this video. Because Lauren Sundstrom's just out here on the internet existing, as many trans and gender diverse and queer people are, and conservative people are regularly in her comments doing what many conservative people do, making it their full-time job to let her know that they do not respect her and that they do not recognize her identity and her lived experience as being valid. Cool way to choose to spend your life. Just going into strangers' comment sections to let them know entirely unprompted that you don't believe them when they tell you about the experience that they're having as a human. But anyway, there's a few things that struck me about this video. One is that one of the main ways conservatives like to attack gender ideology as it pertains to the left is to say that progressive gender ideology, expansive gender ideology is indicative of some kind of collective mental illness. It's the result of a woke mind virus. Progressive people are seeing reality in a warped way. We're out of touch with clear, objective reality. And what's interesting about that is just on the level of clearly observable, objective aesthetics, it seems to me that Lauren Sundstrom is a person who is very easily identifiable as a woman. It seems like it requires more mental work and a longer mental walk to look at a person like Lauren Sundstrom and try to force your brain to refrain from instantly categorizing her as a woman and try to force your brain to instead categorize her as something else. Like, that to me just seems like it requires more mental gymnastics. It requires one to willfully remove themselves from what is objectively and plainly observable. But then that brought me to the other thought that I had watching this video that I think is actually the more interesting thought. And that is that it occurs to me that if Lauren Sundstrom were a cisgender man and she was living her life the way that she is and presenting the way that she does and dressing the way that she does, these same conservative people who are in her comments insisting that she's a man would probably be telling her that's not how a man dresses. That's not what a man does. Conservatives are always insisting that there is a way that a real man, that actual men are supposed to dress, sound, behave, look. There's a way that a real man sits. There's a way that a real man walks. There are jobs that belong to real men. And any time conservatives encounter cisgender men who are behaving in ways that go outside of the rigid parameters they've created for real men, they're really quick to point out how, these cisgender men aren't real men. A real man doesn't wear a dress. A real man doesn't talk like that. A real man doesn't sit like that. So it's just interesting to me that if Lauren Sundstrom were a cisgender man who wanted to be identified as a cisgender man, conservatives would probably deny her that. They would probably say, no, you're not a man. That's not how a man behaves. That's not how a man dresses. So the situation that Lauren finds herself in is that probably growing up, she had people like the people in her comments telling her, you run like a girl, you talk like a girl, stop acting like a girl, be a man. And then she went, oh, don't worry, I am a girl. That actually is who I am, so that's correct. So I am running the way that I should run, and I am talking the way that I should talk. And then those same people went, no, never mind, not like that. You actually are a man. And there's a third thing here that I think is really interesting and exciting, and that is that underneath all of this, there's something about the way that conservatives are seeing women like Lauren Sundstrom that's almost close to something potentially correct and true. Bear with me, I'm gonna explain. Being able to look at a person like Lauren Sundstrom and say, that's a man, shows an ability and a willingness to accept and lean into a more expansive idea of what a man is. Because a lot of conservatives will tell you that a man is this very rigid, specific idea and concept, that there's a very specific way a man is supposed to look. But if those same people are also saying that a man is this, whether they're aware of it or not, and let's be honest, they're not, they're unintentionally engaging in a concept of gender that's pretty broad and expansive. And I don't know, it just sort of begs the question, like, conservatives, which is it? Is a man this very rigid idea? Like, is a man only this? Is this what a man is supposed to look like? Or is a man a loose enough, fluid enough, open, expansive enough concept that a man can be anything from this to this? By the way, this is a trans man. You didn't know that though, did you? And I bet there's going to be some of you in the comments who are going to say, nah, I knew that was a trans man, but let's be honest, you didn't know. You didn't know.
This comment was written in response to a video where I talked about the relative nature of size. In that video, I talked about how if you could grow yourself to the size of the Milky Way galaxy, you wouldn't be able to identify any empty space between any of the planets in our solar system. They would all just appear to be one solid object. It's not uncommon at all when discussing the indescribable enormity of the known universe for people to suddenly feel impossibly small and therefore insignificant. So I definitely relate with this comment on an emotional level. But I don't necessarily think that this is the correct takeaway. I don't think that the lesson to be learned when discussing the relative size of different objects in the known universe is, I'm so small and insignificant. I think that the lesson to be learned is, there's no such thing as being small, and everything is significant. As human beings, we are deeply socialized to believe that there is immense significance attached to our size. We always feel like our bodies are too big or too small and rarely ever just right. In the grand scale of the cosmos, human beings are a species of creatures that all amount to roughly the same size. But that doesn't stop us getting hung up on the tiniest minutia in the details of our size in relation to each other. We really care a whole lot about centimeters and inches. A nose that sits this big on your face versus this big on your face. A belly that sticks out this far from your pants versus this far. What looking at the size of the universe should teach us, though, is that size is mostly just an illusion. There's only relativity and perspective. An object's size in relation to or from the perspective of another object. Take the planet Jupiter. When you try to consider the size of the planet Jupiter in relation to yourself, you can't really do it. You can't really adequately, accurately imagine Jupiter's size in comparison to your own size. It's simply unimaginably large. But again, if you were able to grow yourself to the size of the entire Milky Way galaxy, it would become unimaginably small. So which is it? Is Jupiter unimaginably large, or is it unimaginably small? Well, it's both. And also, it's neither. But one thing's for sure, Jupiter is undeniably significant. If Jupiter were to suddenly blip out of existence today, it would have a massive effect on the way our entire solar system functions, and that would eventually ripple out into having a massive effect on all of the star systems around us. Everything in the universe is constantly being acted upon by everything else in the universe. Whether Jupiter is big or small or neither has no bearing on this fact. Whether you are big or small or neither has no bearing on this fact. You are significant because you are here. The universe simply would not function the same without you in it. Okay, bye-bye!
So I'm not an impressionist, but I was listening to Greta Gerwig on Mark Maron's podcast, and I was working on an impression of what I think it would sound like if Greta Gerwig called me on the phone to ask me to be in a movie that she's making. And I want to make it really, really clear. I'm not making fun of Greta Gerwig when I do this impression. I want to get this phone call. I want this to be my life. If I could get this phone call, I wouldn't need to have any other things. I wouldn't need food or shelter or anything else. That could just be it for me, and I could be done needing things to happen. But anyway, it goes like this. Hey, Austin, it's Greta Gerwig. I'm making a film, and I think it's gonna be kind of beautiful in a sort of transcendent, kind of expansive way.
And I think it'd be really cool if you wanted to help me out, be in it. Let me know.